sometimes, the loudest power is found in complete silence. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like your presence didn't matter? Like your voice wasn't loud enough to be heard? Like no one noticed you unless you forced yourself to be seen? You speak, but people talk over you. You offer ideas, but they go unheard. You sit in the corner, watching the noise take over, and you wonder, do I have to become like them to matter? Let me offer you something that might just change everything. You do not have to raise your voice to raise your value. You do not have to shout to be heard. You do not have to dominate conversations to command respect. Because real power isn't loud. Real leadership doesn't need to prove itself. Real influence lives in quiet strength, the ability to stay calm, composed, and collected when the world around you is anything but. There is something profound about a person who doesn't need to compete for attention. Something magnetic about someone who listens more than they speak. Something powerful in the one who can remain still while others flail in a storm of noise and need. Silence is not weakness. Stillness is not passivity. The one who can be quiet and still control the room isn't powerless, or they are the most powerful person in it. Why? Because they have mastered the one thing most people never will: themselves. People fear silence. They avoid it, fill it, run from it. Silence makes them uncomfortable. They think it's awkward, empty, dangerous. But silence, when chosen, is the language of strength. It says, I don't need to react. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to join the noise. Imagine that. Imagine sitting in a room full of egos, full of noise, full of posturing, and instead of trying to outtalk anyone, you simply observe. Instead of fighting for space, you create it. Instead of rushing to speak, you wait. The world rushes to speak, but the wise, they wait. The strong, they listen. And when they speak, it's like thunder after lightning. Unmistakable. There is a difference between being loud and being influential. One demands attention. The other commands it. One needs the spotlight. The other becomes the spotlight. You don't need to be the center of attention. You just need to become the center of energy. When you are calm, collected, and present, people feel it. Even when you say nothing, they feel it. Your presence becomes a signal. Your stillness becomes a mirror. Your silence becomes a message. There is something undeniable about someone who walks in with calmness and certainty. They don't speak often, but when they do, people lean in, not because the words are louder, but because the silence before them gave them weight. You don't need to speak often. You just need to speak truth. You don't need to say everything. You just need to say what matters. And when you speak like that, intentionally, truthfully, sparingly, every word echoes long after it leaves your mouth. Before you walk into any room, check your energy. If you walk in desperate to be heard, desperate to be seen, then you are already giving away your power. But if you walk in settled, grounded, sure of yourself, you won't have to say a word. Your presence will say everything. The calmest person in the room is often the most respected. Why? Because calmness radiates control, stability, trust. People follow the person who doesn't get rattled. People trust the one who doesn't need to react. That's emotional discipline, and it is one of the rarest, most powerful qualities you can ever develop. Loud confidence often comes from insecurity, but quiet confidence, that comes from clarity, from peace, from inner strength. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need validation. It simply is. You don't need to fight for space. You are the space. You don't need to interrupt to be relevant. You are relevant by the way you carry yourself. Your silence is not emptiness. It's full of power. Here's a story that proves it. There was a man. He worked on an environment filled with big personalities, loud voices, people constantly trying to one-up each other. Meetings felt like battlegrounds. Conversations were competitions. Everyone wanted to be heard, except him. He said very little, but he was always present, always observing, always calm. While others were talking over each other, he was listening. While others were trying to be impressive, he was being intentional. At first, people overlooked him. They assumed he had nothing to say. But then something started to happen. Every time he did speak, people stopped. Every word had weight. Every sentence was sharp, clear, necessary. He didn't ramble. He didn't posture. He didn't try to convince. He simply spoke the truth. And over time, people started to turn to him for clarity, for perspective, for direction. Not because he was loud, but because he was reliable, trustworthy, solid. One day, In a heated meeting, the team was at a deadlock, emotions were high, arguments were flying, and then someone asked him, "What do you think?" He said 10 words, and in those 10 words, he did what no one else could. He cut through the chaos. He brought everyone back to center, not with emotion but with calm insight. Everyone listened, and the decision was made. That man didn't just control the room, he led it, not with volume, but with value. That's what happens when you live with quiet power. People will try to provoke you. They will challenge your silence. They will mistake it for weakness. But you know the truth. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to join every fight. You don't need to defend yourself every time someone misunderstands you, because you understand something deeper. Emotional control is your greatest weapon. Anyone can yell, anyone can react, but to stay calm and to stay still in the middle of chaos, that's strength. While others are busy trying to be heard, you are observing. While they are performing, you are learning. While they are reacting, you are choosing. And choice is power. When you observe more and react less, you start to see things others don't. You see who's leading and who's pretending, who's strong and who's just loud. You see motives, insecurities, patterns, and that awareness becomes your edge. You become the person everyone eventually turns to, and not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. In every room, there is one person who becomes the anchor, the steady hand, the calm eye in the storm, and the room bends toward that person. Why? Because we all crave stability, we crave certainty, we crave presence. Be that presence. You don't have to echo the room, be the mirror instead. When you are calm, you reflect truth. When you are still, others see their own noise more clearly. When you are grounded, you expose the chaos around you, and not by fighting it, but simply by being different. That's the key. Don't fight the storm. Be the stillness within it. And when you speak, speak like thunder after lightning. You don't need to talk long. You just need to speak truth. You don't need to convince. You just need to be clear. You will notice something powerful start to happen. People will begin to ask for your thoughts. They will want your input. They will begin to watch you. Not because you demand either, but because your silence commands curiosity. Because your calm commands respect. You don't need to be loud to be legendary. Think of the people who've impacted you the most. Were they the ones always talking, or the ones who said little, but changed everything? You don't need noise. You need meaning. You don't need to take up space. You need to bring value to the space you're in. You don't need to rush. You need to be ready. And above all, remember this. You already belong. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to be anything other than calm, intentional, present. Walk into every room knowing who you are, knowing what you carry, knowing that your silence is not emptiness, it is fullness under control. You are the calm force in a loud world, the quiet strength in a room full of noise, the still one who still leads. Let them wonder why you're quiet. Let them feel your presence without a single word. Let your silence unsettle the ones who rely on noise. Because the most powerful person in the room is never the one who speaks the most. It's the one who speaks only when it matters and moves everyone without ever needing to move at all.